Welcome to this week's Feel Good Friday. And this week is a bit of a golden oldie. This is, I think, an interview from about 5 years ago as part of the weekly live stream Secrets to Recovery Live that we used to do with Optimal Health Clinic. And I chose this story because it's a little bit different to some of the other recovery stories that are out there. James was working as a trader in the City of London. He was working too hard, exercising too hard, living too hard, really. And I like this story because I think it shows how some of the positives of the achiever pattern can also be harnessed in a helpful way for the recovery process as well. So here's James and his recovery story. So maybe just paint a little bit of a picture of your life kind of pre-ME-CFS. When I think I said in the little spiel that came out, you were working as a trader, which I think is, as far as stressful jobs go, is about as stressful as it gets. Exercising 6 times a week. And then one day...
it was really weird. I mean, I was discussing with the guys here beforehand how I am now and how I was then. I just had no real awareness of my body.
Sure.
Like even to this day, I still push myself pretty hard, but I must have just been on the edge and just had no real idea of what was going on. So I was working 60-hour plus weeks, out client, entertaining like twice a week, running like 30 miles plus, playing 2 games of football whilst...
I feel exhausted hearing about it.
So, and then, I mean, it sounds silly now, but I felt like a pain in the right side of my temple at work, and I said to the guy next to me, jokingly, if I'm not in tomorrow, it's because I've got a brain tumour. And then I'd say within 30 seconds, I was face first into my keyboard and completely, KO'd. And I'm a little bit of a clown at times, and I think people kind of thought, he's mucking around. And then when they realised it was obviously rather serious, I was rushed into a hospital. Was in there basically overnight. Then the next day I felt a little bit groggy, but nothing too spectacular.
And did they say what had happened?
I mean, they were kind of saying he might have had like the guy that I was with was panicking because they're saying he might have had a stroke, and I'm kind of sat there like, well, can somebody tell me if I have or not? I kind of want to know. They were saying that he's just when they kind of describe what I did, they're like, oh, he's just an idiot, send him home. So I went home, slept it off, woke up in the morning, felt a bit groggy, didn't go into work. Following day, tried to go back into work and literally felt like I'd been hit with a sledgehammer. I've just had nothing. Like, and from going from having everything and being so outgoing, and I just, was completely wiped out.
Were there, sometimes when you kind of take time to look back, you can see warning signs before. Like, were there any warning signs? Was it literally just out of nowhere?
Mine, as you know, everybody's story is so different, and that's the most frustrating thing about this. Mine literally just came from nowhere. Like, it was maybe if I could go back now and I had the same kind of realization, then I'd be like, whoa, alarm bells would be ringing. But at the time, I literally saw nothing coming, and then I just completely crashed. And from there, it took a little while. I kept seeing various doctors, and they were saying, it's just take paracetamol and relax. But your own body, and I knew I was in real trouble. And my girlfriend at the time, I was now my wife, by the way. She's not gone. I was saying to her, I know something's not right. And then eventually we saw a really good doctor that diagnosed me, first of all, with influenza A, which then developed into CFS.
And at that time, what were the main symptoms? Obviously, there was the fatigue, and there was the initial kind of shock. I really
wish I brought it with me today, but it's a beautiful pink diary that I have. And I remember as clear as day. I'll never forget the symptoms. I used to get a throbbing around the temple. I'd literally felt like I'd been beaten up because my shoulders were killing my chest. But I think a lot of that, I was in a lot of pain, like throughout my body. Sometimes I'd have raging headaches. I couldn't get out of bed. Other days my stomach would feel like there'd been an explosion inside. It was just agony throughout my body. And when I remember I used to write down, bear in mind what I used to do, a massive job for the day for me would be putting the washing on and maybe being able to hang it out. And then I'd have to literally rush back to the sofa and lay down.
Not calmly walk back to the sofa.
I mean, I was, I remember one of the worst days, because my wife's a special needs teacher, so it was amazing that she kind of had if it was roles reversed, I would never have been as understanding as she was. She was just absolutely incredible. So she literally, we walked, I'd say 15 metres outside the front door, and I could have burst into tears. I just said to her, I can't do this. And
I think, one of the things that I think it's important to say is that, people, I know that our audience that are watching this, I'm sure the vast majority of people that are suffering from ME/CFS, that, they've got they get it. But to the kind of general public, people say, oh, we all get tired. Couldn't you just kind of push through it? If it was possible to push through it, in terms of personality characteristic, you would have done it.
I mean, I couldn't watch TV because I was so tired that I couldn't focus. And that's just pure exhaustion. If I tried to focus on the TV, it felt like my head was going to explode. That's how tired I was. And I mean, I've never, ever in all my life experienced tiredness like it. And again, coming from the other side of the fence, if I would have gone around and somebody would have said that to me without experiencing it, I wouldn't have believed. I'd been like, I've been tired before, kind of. So it's so humbling for me in a way to go through that, because I would never, ever have been able to. And that's what I try to get across to people, similar to my personality, that until you go through something like that, you can't experience. You have no idea what people are suffering with, because for me, it's one of the worst. Well, it is the worst thing I've ever been through in my life, and it was so. I mean, I had to go on to antidepressants, and I couldn't ever imagine doing that.
One of the things I'm curious to kind of ask you about is, often people, and again, I know our audience get this, but I think it's an important point to make, that people will often say, well, you're just depressed. But of course, if you can't hardly get out of bed, and you can't watch TV, and you can't do any of the things that you like to do, if you don't get depressed, there's probably something wrong with you. If you're just
I would say it's completely normal. I was basically in prison. I was trapped in the house. I felt like I'd gone from the most confident person in the world to like a 90-year-old man. I was petrified of everything. I went for a walk one day and a bus went past me, and I felt like I was going to pass out because I was that frightened. Like anything, I was having panic attacks. I mean, anybody that's watching this is going through this. I mean, I can't. It's just being frightened about nothing. And then the snowball effect, where it just builds up, and you've built a monster out of absolutely nothing, and then you've no energy, and you just. I mean, there's just so many things that it's just atrocious to go through. It really is.
And I think one of the other things that's really important, and again, I'm sure people are aware of this, but I still think it's an important point to make, that people say, for example, oh, you're depressed. And one of the ways that actually Jess and the psychology team first kind of conceptualized this for me, where she said, if you're depressed, all you want to do is get into bed and hide away from the world. If you have ME/CFS, all you want to do is get out of bed and come out into the world. If you have anxiety, that's just anxiety, that normally if you go and do some kind of physical exercise, it helps you feel better because it burns off the energy. If you have ME/CFS, you can't do that, and you end up anxious because you can't do anything, not you can't do anything because you're anxious, although it can be its own loop in the end.
You're just trapped. You're literally trapped the whole time, and to not be able to get away from it, and you're just there with your thoughts, which are, in my opinion, the most dangerous thing. That you're hurting yourself more than anything else, and until you learn the techniques that I learned at the clinic, you don't have an answer, and you're just sitting there beating yourself up all day.
Well, we'll come back to that bit in a second. I just wanted, before we do, so you were unable to work and you were experiencing all of these kind of symptoms. Very lucky to have the support of your now wife. How did that unfold? I mean, how long were you kind of like that for? And
I fell ill the 23rd of March 2011.
You remember the day?
I was going to get it tattooed on my chest, but I ended up getting Anything's Possible instead. I don't really like tattoos. This is so boring. I see tattoos. I see tattoos as clothing. Would you wear something 10 years ago that you wear today? So that's my rationale for not getting a tattoo. But
if it was post Watershed, I'd ask you to show the tattoo. But I'm not sure if we're allowed to do that at 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock. So it was 23rd of March.
23rd of March 2011. I hit rock bottom on the 26th of October 2011. That was the day when I wouldn't get out of bed,
or couldn't get out of bed.
I just couldn't do it. And my wife, we had a problem with the car, and she said, "Will you come down to the thing?" And I couldn't. I just cried in bed, and I think it set her off. And then when she started crying, it kind of gave me a bit of a kick that I needed. And then I said, I think I'm ready. I need to go on antidepressants now because I'm at rock bottom. I can't function anymore.
So that was 6 months of your life kind of being like that.
Yeah.
What happened from there? I mean,
We used to have, we had a massive wall chart on the wall. So a good day was smiley face, average day, normal, and then bad day, frowny face. And looking at the wall, it was just all black frowny faces from October through to December. And Christmas was my favourite time of the year. And to go through something like that at Christmas was just, it was so hard for all my family to see, and friends and people that would come round, and I'd just be literally...
Yeah. That's one of the other things that's so difficult is you want to put on a front for everyone else, but you can't do it because
I think the only person that actually knows what I went through is my wife, because when people come around, you give it, you put on a performance, and whatever energy you have, you kind of project out, but when they go, and then you're back to square one again. So so you got through kind of Christmas, and then how did your path unfold from there? Nick found you guys online. I put so much faith in my doctor, who he's an amazing doctor, and we're very close friends to this day. Very close friends. We're close to this day. And I put so much faith in him because I felt like I had, he was kind of like not a father figure, he was something that I would hold on to. And he always seemed to have some kind of answer, whereas nobody had any answer. So Nick said to me, we're trying something else. He's not failing you, but in a way he is, because he's not letting you go.
Yes.
Then we came across you guys, and the amount of times I said this to you, it just changed my life completely.
Yeah.
I did the workshop here when I first came. That was in January 2012. I came in here, and just being here around other people, talking to other people, having people like the first time I got the phone call from you guys, and having people understand what I was going through, and I could have cried, and I was so emotional, so over the moon. I was so excited to come here, and it was everything I hoped for and more. And the techniques and going through everything, it was just so simplistic, but it was just just actually realizing what my body needed, helping it with the meditating, helping me to calm down. And like when you the first thing you say is you're going 1,000,000 miles an hour. And I'm like, I'm so calm. And you're like, you're not, in a state, basically in a state of shock right now. And I didn't even realize that I was. But then when I actually took the time to meditate and calm down, and you're like, oh my God, I'm in real bother here. Yeah,
I mean, I think it's sometimes we're so normalized to being in the state that we're in that we don't even realize. That the analogy we sometimes use, it's like you take a frog and you put it in a glass of boiling water, it will jump out. You put it in a glass of cold water and you gradually heat it, and it will stay in there and it will get cooked because it doesn't notice the subtle increase in the temperature. And when we get more and more used to be in a high state of anxiety and fear and reaction to our symptoms,
it becomes a norm.
We don't notice it. And I should say that through Secrets to Recovery Live, we'll do a whole range of different recovery stories. People who've been ill for short periods of time, long periods of time, people that have had simple past recovery, complex past recovery. But I think I wanted to start kind of early on with kind of your story, partly because I think what it demonstrates is firstly the kind of intensity of the crash, how it can come out of nowhere, but also when you have the right tool for the job, which we don't always have the first time. It can be people can have a much more kind of windy kind of path to kind of find the right way. But it sounds like the 90-day programs, I think was what you went on for you, was the thing that absolutely helped to kind of nail it. And I'm curious as to, it sounds like psychologically there was an immediate kind of lift, but in terms of the effect physically, how did that kind of move forward? So you
without a shadow of a doubt, the nutrition. So I knew, coming from like a very healthy background, I thought I knew what my body needed, so I was loading up on carbs and stuff. But with that kind of food, you go up and then you crash back down. Every time I'd come back down, I'd start panicking and send my body into the unhelpful spiral again.
So you were blood sugar crashing, that's interesting, and that was triggering the anxiety.
Yeah, so
that's interesting.
Because that was kind of the first thing that happened to me, the exhaustion. Every time I got tired, I'd panic. And then I'd just go into like a complete state, and just by having the balanced diet and getting my nutrition right, it gave me more energy, which then gave me more confidence because I was never crashing. By having that extra energy and having a steady progress throughout the day, then you start forgetting. It's like how you said earlier with the frog. When you're constantly telling yourself, I'm ill, I can't do this, then it's like kind of like muscle memory. Your mind never forgets. So as soon as you wake up, the first thing you do the full body scan. So you're like, am I okay here? Is my chest okay? And then before you know it, you've put yourself in the state you don't want to be in already.
Yeah, and it's also, I wanted to pick up quickly as well on something you said about you would get exhausted, or your blood sugar would crash, or whatever the trigger was, and then you'd get a massive rush of anxiety.
Yeah.
And that's a really good example of what I would consider biologically induced anxiety. Because, there's, of course, the psychology tools are super important for many people, but sometimes what triggers the anxiety patterns is actually a biological change. And then, of course, using psychological tools, we can help calm down that response. But dealing with the physical things that are happening, both in terms of nutritionally, but also if someone is that they haven't got their pacing level right and they're doing too much activity, they're crashing, anxiety goes through the roof because the body's crashed and it pumps adrenaline to try and lift the energy up again. And so identifying those kind of triggers, I think, is super important. And it sounds like, by managing your activity better and by kind of dealing with the nutrition side.
Trial and error, yeah. It's like the wall chart in the diary, and kind of, like I said, like having Nick, my wife, she was just incredible. Like the support she gave me and throughout was just, ridiculous. So...
Yeah, and so you did the 90-day program and you did the nutrition work.
Yeah.
And how did the path move from there? Was it a straight line? Were there bumps in the road?
It seemed to move, going from the confidence that it gave me from just coming here and realising I could, because I was just telling myself that I couldn't do anything, just rest, don't do anything. But yeah, she gave me a good kick at home and just knew the kind of person I was. So she was like, no, push hard. If that's what you are, then you push hard. And I was scared to go back to the gym, but she was like, literally within a week of being here, Jess was like, try it. What's the worst can happen? You can either sit at home or try it. So I was back to the gym, and the more my confidence seemed to come back so fast. And with the nutrition alongside it, I was very, very lucky as well. I know a lot of people, they have to work. I was completely signed off of work, so I had that time to recover. We didn't have the little terror that we have now running around.
Otherwise known as your son.
Yeah. So it was just everything was kind of in my favour to recover. But at the same time, I'm in contact with my doctor, and I get a lot of referrals from people suffering from ME and CFS, and it frustrates me so badly that I give them my time. I try and help them, but they don't follow through with it. Like for me, I lived everything you told me to an absolute T. And I understand people, everybody's a different mentality, but I think if you really want to recover, you have to believe you're going to, number one. Number two, you have to do it. You can't have 2 cheat days. So, I'll eat whatever at McDonald's today, and then you start feeling terrible, and then you crash again. I think it has to be consistent for me.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting. I think there's that place between you have to be committed and you have to be determined, and you also have to surrender to accepting where you are. And that's a theme we've touched on in Six Recovery quite a lot before, but we'll get into more in Six Recovery Live. But I often think that for someone like your experience, the character that caused you to get sick, the driving, the pushing, the trying to do everything to the extreme, is also the personality traits used in the right way can help you recover. Usually the wrong way just causes you to...
of course. I'm not being judgmental of anybody whatsoever, how everybody recovers in their own way.
Yeah.
And I'm so sympathetic for anybody going through this. So I'm not standing saying
that's clear.
You have to.
Don't worry, that's clear.
You have to, but
I think it's totally... And sometimes the discipline and the commitment is to not push oneself. But if your tendency, like yours was, to keep pushing, sometimes we have to have the discipline to stop. And that's what's difficult. But whatever the path is, what you're describing is true. There has to be the commitment to find the way. So let's come a little bit. We've got kind of 5 minutes or so. Let's come a little bit into kind of life the other side. Sure. So obviously, you from that path, you kind of found your way to recovery. Yeah. I know you've gone on to mention a little terror, so we can talk about that. But also, in terms of your fitness, and so just talk us through about what your life is like at this point.
Yeah. So once I stuck to I'm a little bit naughty on the diet now, but at the time I was so...
That's allowed. I won't tell the director nutritionist that's over there.
I think I was still very frightened. Like, so I stuck to the diet to a T. I really got back into my football and fitness and stuff like that. But at the same time, I was physically better, but mentally I was still shaky. Like I was still scared of a lot of things, and will it come back? Because you hear these horror stories,
Sure.
Is it going to come back? And
And it can happen sometimes. If someone recreates the same circumstances without bringing forward what they've learned, you can recreate the same situation.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you take forward the learning.
That's it. And now I feel like I have like a kind of like big brother voice kind of behind me. So whenever I do push too hard, it's not nice at times because you get a little bit panicky and fearful. Like if I'm quite tired because I've done something stupid, like ran 10 miles and done something else and not eaten, you're going to be tired, and I'll start getting a little bit.
But the difference is now you see that as a useful message rather than something to ignore. Because the reason why you burnt out is you would have got that message and shut it down. Yeah. Whereas now there's a voice that says, hang on a second, your body is tired, it's hungry, you need to take care of it.
Of course.
Yeah.
But so then I in my diary, I always had a list of things I wanted to do when I recovered, and running the marathon was one. Obviously, I wanted to do as much for you guys as I could, so hosting the charity night, which was a massive success.
Yeah, then you raised 4,000 or 5,000 for the charity, which was really great.
Then obviously ran the Paris Marathon, which was incredible. But literally as soon as I recovered, because my wife came to see me when I first collapsed, and they wouldn't let her see me because I was in critical care, and they said, "Oh, she's only, who are you? You're kind of his girlfriend." So the first thing we wanted to do was get married. So to literally, as soon as I felt I was better, we called up the registry office, and 2 weeks later we were married.
Okay. Another example of the no hanging about games.
Saved us a lot of money as well. So I was over the moon with that. And then we had our first our little boy in April 2013.
And that's probably been a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, he's just he tires me out just as much some days.
I speak from knowledge here.
And but I mean, very, very happy, incredibly healthy now, and live a much better lifestyle than what I did before.
Yeah, and if the you that was in that kind of October time where you kind of reached your kind of bottom point kind of through that Christmas was watching this now, what advice would you give? What would you say to someone in that position?
You have to believe. You've got to keep believing that you'll get better. I remember I took a picture of myself that all the boys put on a T-shirt, which was lovely of them for the cup when they won their cup final, and it was a picture of me crying in bed. It's an awful picture, but I took it and I remember taking it saying, once you get better, never let yourself get in this situation again. Yeah. And I took the picture, and looking back then, you've got to believe you're going to get better, and because otherwise you stay in that unhelpful pattern all the time. But I'm completely kind of changed my life since recovering. So I don't ever want to fall back into the kind of life that I was living before. Yeah,
and I think believing is a really interesting thing, because I think it's not that you have to believe. It's not that if you believe you're going to get better, you wake up the next morning you're better. It's like you stand on top of the building and believe you can fly and flap your arms, you don't fly. But it's like the belief is what gets you to do the positive actions that then help things change.
It's a long road, and I mean, don't get me wrong, I didn't wake up beaming every day thinking, I had some terrible, real down days, and even
once you were doing better, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And even though I kept saying, no, you're going to get better, there were times where I was just at rock bottom, and literally I needed. Nick was just picking me up all the time, saying, no, come on. Some days you need love and attention, just be left alone. Other days you do need that kick to push you on.
Yeah. And I think it's also it's very inspiring in a sense that also it's not just that you have recovered and kind of living a kind of simple life. I think sometimes one of the fears people have is that, okay, they might be able to recover some functioning, but they won't be able to fully recover. And I think it's important that everyone is different. And, there are as many kind of versions of ME/CFS as there are people affected by it. So I'm certainly not going to sit here and say everyone can make a full recovery and run a marathon. But I think it's always really important for people to see stories where, even if compared to some people being ill for 20, 30, 40 years, whatever, everyone's different. But to see stories where you can not just recover and kind of survive a normal life, but you can also go on and thrive.
Yeah, no, when I was running the marathon, and there were points where it was tough.
Really? Really?
Yeah, a few points. That's what I thought of. And
the rest of us here just do them every day.
Just for a laugh, brush them off.
Exactly.
But there were times when I was thinking, there's someone in bed. When you say, what would you say to the guy back in October? I was thinking, there's someone in bed right now that you're running this for. Mm. So keep, you're blessed that you can run this right now, because look at yourself a year ago and you couldn't move. So this is easy compared to people suffering
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, well, I think it's very inspiring, and I really appreciate you also kind of coming on camera and kind of talking to people. I know it's a kind of, it's often a big thing, and I think it's it's also a real testament to your wonderful wife and the support you've had. I know how much you've clearly made it clear how much you've appreciated that.
I wouldn't, and I say that people going through this, if they have someone that will support them and understand what they're going through, it makes everything so much easier, because the people that, when I came on the course, the people that had been broken up and marriages broken up on the back of, it's because people just can't understand, and to have that kind of support, it is priceless. It is absolutely priceless.
It is. And it's saying I should say something on Secrets to Recovery Live we will get into more, especially those that haven't got that support, and how to learn to support yourself and give yourself kind of the care that you need. But James, thank you for now. I really appreciate you taking the time, and also for the fundraising you've done for us. It's hugely appreciated.
You know that.
Yeah, great.
Cool.
Thank you, man.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Care.
I hope you enjoyed that session. We're now growing a bit of a library of these inspirational stories on Everyday Alex. So different people resonate with different ingredients of different stories, and do check out, they were Soul Food Sundays, they're now Feel Good Fridays. Do check out some of the other stories that we've covered as well. It's Mindful Monday on Monday, and for next week's episode, I'm going to do another guided meditation, and I'm going to do a meditation for self-care. So for those of you that are really working on being more gentle, more nurturing towards yourself, that's what's coming up on Monday, and I look forward to talking with you then.